Okay, the next group of disorders that we're going to talk about are the somatic symptom disorders. And these disorders, I want you to think about the root of the word. Somatic, soma, right? Think back to Unit 2 when we talked about the neuron. The soma was the cell body. Soma means body. So somatic symptoms are going to be of the body. So somatic symptom disorders are characterized by physical symptoms, so actual physical symptoms that seem to suggest a physical disorder. So if someone were to go to the doctor, we would say, oh my gosh, we need to take a look at that. Why are you having that physical symptom? However, they have no physical cause. Or there seems to suggest that those symptoms are linked to psychological factors, okay? So the two disorders we're going to talk about are conversion disorder and illness anxiety disorder, which formerly used to be hypochondria. However, I also want to talk to you about two other disorders that are under this category as well. Munchausen syndrome, which includes by proxy, as well as Ganser syndrome. However, these two disorders are considered factitious disorders. Factitious disorders are feigned or faked disorders, okay? So Munchausen syndrome is where someone purposefully makes themselves ill or sick or gives them a physical ailment on purpose, okay? So if someone were to put bleach in their own Gatorade and drink that so that they created symptoms of some sort of physical disorder. Munchausen's by proxy is where someone is purposely making someone within their proximity sick. And an example of this is Gypsy Rose Blanchard. There was just a Netflix series about that, right? This is where the mother was purposely making her daughter sick. This is probably the most common form of Munchausen by proxy, where mothers are making their children sick. The other disorder, Ganser syndrome, is where someone is faking a symptom. So they're not actually physically making themselves sick by injecting feces into their blood or by putting pills into their food, but they're just faking that they have some sort of physical symptom. So it would be like, ow, my hand hurts, and they just are saying that it hurts. That's Ganser syndrome. So why then are these considered disorders? Aren't they just someone is lying? Well, if someone is going to go to the extreme of injecting feces into their food, wouldn't we think for sure that is distressful, that is dysfunctional, that is for sure deviant and unjustified, right? Like, so if it has those 3Ds and U, we have to classify it as a disorder then, right? And if you don't know what I'm talking about with these 3Ds and the U, then go back to the intro video, rewatch that again, and look at those classifications, okay? So we do consider these disorders because they fall within dysfunctional, distressful, deviant, and unjustified. Okay, so let's look at the disorders within somatic symptoms. So conversion disorder is also called functional neurological symptom disorder. And what conversion disorder is that there are unexplained physical symptoms or deficits that usually affect voluntary motor or sensory function. And it suggests that there's some sort of medical condition, yet no medical condition exists. Okay, so common symptoms are like paralysis of the arm, blindness, deafness, fainting, difficulty walking. All of these things are what would happen, right? So they're physical symptoms, and we would think that there would be some sort of physical cause for these symptoms. However, there isn't. Usually the onset of conversion disorder comes after a stressful event. Okay. Most of the time, the symptoms are actually anatomically impossible. For example, glove anesthesia. Basically what this is the inability to feel your hand. However, you can feel your arm. This is anatomically impossible, right? Because like in order for you to have this issue, it'd have to come from the spinal cord. And so if You're going to lose the feeling in your hand. You're going to lose the feeling in your arm as well. Okay. With conversion disorder, one of the most significant indicators that someone has this is labile indifference, and it literally translates to beautiful indifference. And this is where the person has extreme anxiety in other parts of their life, but they lack really any concern for these physical symptoms that appear to be incapacitating, right? Like they just like aren't concerned about the physical symptoms that are going on, but there's anxiety about other things in their life. Oftentimes, the symptoms allow the individual to kind of escape from the situation or the frustrating situation or stressful event, and then sometimes it can lead to secondary gain, which that person then subconsciously enjoys, such as attention or affection that they would receive because of these physical symptoms. The next disorder is illness anxiety disorder. Remember, this is formerly hypochondria. This is the preoccupation with the idea that a person might get a serious disease along with misinterpreting bodily symptoms. Okay, so there's three major characteristics. The first is the anxiety or the fear. Okay, the fear that someone is going to get extremely ill. That's the first thing. The second thing is that they usually are going to focus on a particular body feature or physical complaint. So it might be a headache. And now they are going to focus on that headache and think it is going to turn into some sort of serious condition like brain cancer or a aneurysm or other brain issues, right? And then the third characteristic would be the person is going through behaviors that are designed to avoid or check for physical illness. So for example, they're going to be avoiding going into hospitals because they don't want to catch a disease, or they're going to routinely engage in self-inspection or medical consultations, so go to doctors continuously to get checked out. Okay, so these are the three major characteristics of illness anxiety disorder. So this disorder is more than just thinking you're sick all the time. Okay, this is mainly about that fear of getting some sort of serious disease or disorder. So what are the explanations of this? Well, conversion disorder, these episodes are nearly always triggered by some sort of stressful event or emotional conflict. Easterners and women of all cultures are more vulnerable to conversion disorder than men. Easterners makes sense because people in Eastern cultures are going to be easily stressed because their culture tells them that they have to be doing what's good for the rest of society. And if they aren't living up to that, they feel like they are letting down everyone, okay? And then women oftentimes are more prone to stress or anxiety, and so it makes sense that that could be transferred then into a conversion disorder. Illness anxiety disorder, some of the explanations of this, we don't really know. It's unclear. However, we think it might be that our personality, life experiences, our upbringing, and inherited traits all may play a role. That doesn't give us a whole lot, right? Like, obviously, we know that nature and nurture play a role in everything. So obviously, those nature pieces, the inherited traits, and the nurture, the personality, life experiences, and upbringing are going to be involved in illness anxiety disorder. So we're not really sure. However, we do know that it could potentially come from the influence of society of someone else having a disease and going through that. Okay, so we have wrapped up our discussion of somatic symptom disorders, and we have only one disorder category to go over next, and then we will move on to treatments.